You know, in the online discourse of gaming, I'm getting a little bit tired of every time a game comes out that just doesn't perform. It's a Concord 2 because, apparently people who are perpetually online haven't gotten their NPC update yet. And I wanted to go through this a little bit because, well, I kind of saw the article and then I saw a tweet in the article and I was like, oh, joy. So apparently FBC Firebreak has been released by Remedy Entertainment and it did not perform well. And there are people who are perpetually online going, it's a Concord 2. Sorry, I'll stop screaming. I apologize. Not really. I don't care. But I just think it's funny because I think people forgot what made Concord the epic failure that it was. And we'll address all of that as we go through this article. Let's get into it. So over here on Tech for Gamers, now I've been checking out this website because I actually like a lot of what they do because I think Tech for Gamers is just like, hey, this is a thing that happened. And for the most part, that's pretty much what they've been doing. However, this one here, fans are calling Remedy's new shooter Concord 2, which is FBC Firebreak, is a failure. So scrolling down, it says Concord was arguably one of the worst games in the history of gaming, perhaps the worst one. The game was a colossal failure. Now, as far as functionality, the game did function. It wasn't totally broken, but we're going to get into why Concord was Concord and why, if you're calling every game that doesn't succeed Concord 2, you're wrong and you're retarded. Okay, but moving on. The game was a colossal failure as not many players on launch played it due to that PlayStation had to shut it down. Yeah, that was a pretty big deal. Now Remedy has released its shooter game, and while there wasn't much hype, FBC Firebreak has been released, and it is a massive failure. The failure so significant that the fandom is referring to it as a Concord 2. One, I do not like hearing the word fan or fandom, especially when, again, it's a property that nobody's really heard about. Maybe they could be talking about fans of, first-person shooters and really trying to dial that in. But let's face it, most people who are fans of first-person shooters are probably playing Call of Duty. Let's just be honest here. If you go look at the player numbers of first-person shooters versus the player across the board, you're just going to see it's going to be a lot of the bigger guys. It's going to be not games like this, okay? So why it matters, the game cost $40. Oh my God, Concord costs $40. You're still wrong. It's not a Concord 2, and we'll get into why you're retarded here in a second. The same price tag as Concord was launched with, and it doesn't innovate the genre, so players would prefer an FTP title over such types of game. Now, this is Pirate Nation. New Concord just dropped. I'm going to be honest. This guy here always weirded me out just with some of his posts that he would put on X before I left X. But the one that was most hilarious was him talking crap about how, as a longtime Fable fan, he's just really disappointed with the direction that the new Fable is going. And he posted a screenshot from an article in 2004 talking about the first game, and he was referencing that article. He actually deleted the post. You can go find it on the Wayback Machine and stuff like that. I think it's still there. But yeah, he deleted the post because everybody went, oh, you're not a Fable fan. You never played the original game. You don't know what you're talking about. And yet, Sir or Pirate doesn't know what they're talking about is talking about another game. Okay, the game just launched today and its player count didn't even cross 2K, which is kind of similar to Concord. We are aware that many gamers play games during the weekend, but the game launching to fewer than 2,000 players is nowhere close to ideal. And I would say that that's probably true for any game out there. Okay, there are millions of players who love playing FPS shooters, so the market is there, but the game doesn't meet the criteria for that fandom to buy it. Yeah, it's also a very saturated market, so anytime you're going to go into the first-person shooter market, you can't do a swing and a miss. It's just how game development goes, but to call it a Concord is absolutely asinine. You know what? Let's get into it. So why was Concord the worst game to ever release? Well, there are multiple factors going into this. And if you remember this as well as I do, the first factor is the game was almost $500 million. They spent $400 million on the game, and some estimates were wild at the time saying that, oh my gosh, they could have spent up to $700,000 because there was the purchase of the studio and all this stuff, right? But effectively, the solid number that we have is $400 million on the game. In addition to that, okay, that's point number one. Point number two, they thought this was going to be a franchise that was so massive, it would be the next Star Wars. Okay, there was a delusional headspace at that studio to the point where not only did they think it was the next Star Wars, but they were also launching they were doing a multimedia attack. They got TV spots for this thing. They started making different books for it. They thought Concord was going to be the biggest of the big, and nobody could tell them otherwise. And that brings me into my third point, is that at the studio itself, you actually had developers coming out saying, no, you were not allowed to say anything bad about this game. You weren't allowed to go against the grain, and it had the full backing of Sony. What people need to understand is Concord failed because it was a hilarious misstep on the industry. It wasn't just what the AI reports here. Let's look at this real quick. A 30 million euro game that failed. Effectively a game that's working on a AA budget that failed, that did a swing and a miss. That's not a Concord. People equating anything to something that was such an epic failure like Concord. Because again, I listed some of the reasons, and there are more out there. There are people who've done fantastic deep dives on how this thing was a failure. The purchase of the studio for the specific thing, the purchase of Firewalk Studio for the technology that they were doing, the fact that nobody could say anything bad about the game, the fact that it cost them $400 million plus potentially the purchase price of the studio. And then on top of all of that, the low player counts, right? And then you just had the gender homogenous characters that nobody could tell if it was quite a male or quite a female, and people hate that shit. Stop. This isn't 2019 anymore. You're not getting away with that crap. For a game to come out and be a swing and a miss, absolutely, you can be like, man, guys, holy crap. This is definitely a flop of a game. But to equate it to the most massive failure and the most massive business failure in gaming, you're either being dishonest for clicks or you're functionally retarded. And like I said, we already know Pirate Nation is functionally retarded because he sits there and he tries to grift off of anything. Well, the new Fable game is definitely a betrayal to the original franchise, and I can't believe it. And he was talking about the first game that came out. Now, I can say this. I've not seen anything exciting from the new Fable game, and I actually, I have the Lost chapters right here. I keep it close. It's my comfort game. I actually go back. This is one of the few games as an adult that I go back to every few years, and I play it all the way through. I freaking love this game. I've loved this game since I was a kid. Is it the most magical game on the planet? Absolutely not. I love this game. So when you get people who talk about one of my favorite games of all time, and they're literally blowing smoke out of their own ass, you're not going to tell me that person has any sort of functional opinion in the gaming space. Anybody out there who says that a flop of a game, a bad game, is a Concord, lacks business sense, they lack a basic research capability, and they're honestly just trying to bait you into getting money. It's why I, one, got off Twitter, and two, stopped following a ton of accounts that I used to follow. Because I used to follow a lot of accounts very similar to Pirate Nation, and I started seeing, I was like, wait a minute, hold on, that doesn't make sense. That thing that you just said doesn't make sense. Or they would say things and I would go, man, I'm gonna do a video on that. And then I would do 2 minutes of research on Google to find out that it was BS. Because they can't let go of the grip. They made a lot of money with all the culture war stuff that was going on. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of companies are walking away from all that stuff. But it wasn't because of guys like this. It was because more of the honest people that were calling it out. Be careful who you follow online, people. That's basically what I'm getting at. I can't stand posts like this. I can't stand articles like that. A Concord 2 dropped. I was like, shit, another $400 million game dropped to less than 2. No. Every cake has its recipe, right? Everything has its recipe. Concord was a disaster because of the recipe of things that was there to make it that bad. Not every game that fails is that massive of a failure. Now, even Marathon, with as bad and just as nuts as all the Marathon stuff is going around, even that's not a Concord. Because even the developers are like, what the hell happened here? Even Sony doesn't believe in it. There's not this false sense of belief that they have the next Star Wars, right? There's not this, they're not trying to do multimedia deals with books and television shows. And what was that one game show that they put on Amazon? I didn't watch it. I pretty much figured they screwed up. That got a Concord episode because they thought it was going to be so freaking good. Again, Concord failed in a way that was massive. And anybody sitting out there saying that this is the next Concord, they're disingenuous or they're lying to you to get your clicks. Don't let people be like that. Or they're just, like I said, functionally retarded, which I kind of think Pirate Nation is. I don't think I've ever seen a post from him that I was just like, ooh, that was a really good post. Maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I clicked like because he said something mildly interesting one time. I don't know. I don't even have Twitter anymore. This is the kind of stuff here. This is the kind of stuff that has just poisoned the online discourse. Now, if he would have come, if anybody would have been like, well, fans of the franchise are saying it's a pretty bad at first-person shooter, and I think it's like a 61% on Steam right now for reviews, which is definitely not good. I went and read the reviews earlier today. Most reviews saying, yeah, it needed more time to cook. Definitely needed more time to cook. Has some interesting things. Could be fun with friends, but it's not done. It's not finished. They're like, this is not a 1.0 game. Go read the reviews for yourself. Go read the reviews for yourself. And don't trust anybody on Twitter. Even the people that you like. Because you'll find out even the people that you like will just say stuff for clicks. All that being said, guys, I had to get that off my chest. I'm so tired of this stuff. I'm so tired of people not being able to do basic research. And I'm so tired of people trying to change definitions. Like a Concord failure is massive. This is a swing and a miss with what looks to be reported as a AA budget. It happens. It's not Concord. And don't let people change definitions. Don't let people skew how you think. Guard yourself against these functionally retarded people. With all that being said, this video is probably not getting monetized. Thank you all so much for being here. And as always, until next time, cheers, everybody.